Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Naruto Shippuden episode review. This one's going to be for episode 462, The Fabricated Past. As far as we're aware, the last arc of this kind of the last episode of this three-episode arc about Kaguya's kind of past, kind of further explaining who she is, catching us up, I suppose, on a lot of details that were given to us at various points and just kind of fitting it all together. And I like this episode a lot. I really did. They covered a ton of information in this episode. There was so much to get through. Like, the first half was like, okay, you're not going to show us everything here. You're not going to try and, I suppose, potentially eclipse the stuff coming up with showing us too much of this fight. You're just showing us some key points from Hagoromo and Hamura versus Kaguya, without just having it be the battle of all battles that will, could potentially, make people maybe lower excitement for fights still to come, given that we're having the battle of these three gods in this episode, effectively. So I did appreciate that. Okay, they took a slightly different approach to kind of what they were showing, what they weren't showing here. Then in the second half of the episode, Black Zetsu just explains everything, and I quite enjoyed the explanation. It was a giant monologue from Black Zetsu explaining how Madara survived and how he was created, how his whole plan came together, the various pieces of it, manipulating people through the generations to force this situation right now to actually happen. Him saying the plot like that made it come together so well. It is a complex plot, given the amount of characters involved from different generations, all these crazy powers, techniques, beings with a tail beast and stuff like that. But overall, I liked how it came together. It wasn't everything. From what I've seen, some people have some slight issues with, I suppose, the way they visually showed some of the stuff. Like, I think it was stated that Kaguya actually merged with the Divine Tree, whereas here it's more that she kind of controls it to become the Ten Tails. It kind of, I suppose the best way to say it is like her will merges kind of with the tree to turn it into the monster. And so I suppose when she is sealed away, it's at the same time the Ten Tails is sealed away, and it's one of those situations where I could definitely see them potentially coming back to this and giving us extra details on some of these situations, like explaining a little bit more in depth, like how Hagoromo turned the Ten Tails into the nine-tailed beasts. But that was a pretty cute scene where he basically showcased all of the basic, small versions of the nine-tailed beasts to his brother, and just knowing like what he was going to do with them, and getting an explanation about like how it all comes together. This was just one of those episodes where it brought together just information presented to us from so many different episodes and presented to us in an effective way, in just like, this is why all of this is important right now. All this crazy stuff that's happened in these episodes, here is how it all connects together to create this plan. And I definitely appreciated that. On the more character-focused side of the episode at the start, obviously we have basically going straight towards the confrontation. Hagoromo has mastered Sage Mode effectively and goes to confront Kaguya. And immediately, she is not happy about this and reveals that she has actually managed to kind of take over Hamura's mind, and so the two brothers have to fight. And again, they didn't focus too much on the fight itself, and that I think they were very clearly saying that Hagoromo was much more powerful than Hamura. But it still was a very kind of shocking moment when he just basically Chidoris him through the chest and, in essence, kills him but in the process kind of snaps him out of the control, but then revives him using the Sage tag, which that's probably my one slight negative about the episode. I thought that the explanation of that Sage tag was just a little bit like, wait, you're just introducing this really important thing that can basically bring someone back to life like that, and it's just a piece of paper with some writing on it, basically. And he basically explains it that like the previous Toad Sages in the past, put their lives into this to make it important, and okay, but like it was just a piece of paper. It didn't really have the impact that perhaps it should have had as like a really big thing, but used effectively, and Hagoromo having to kill his brother unlocks the Rinnegan. Now, it obviously presents the slight issue of like, wait, does that mean anyone who has a Sharingan can get the Rinnegan if they just do this? But I think they more or less explain it is that because Hagoromo is Kaguya, who has the Rinne Sharingan's like direct, son, and he has in essence the same chakra, and he can unlock that power himself over time because he himself is so powerful. But obviously, as time goes on, and the Otsutsuki aspect of each people as part of the lineage going forward becomes less and less. The powers become separated. Hence why as they kind of explain with Hagoromo, his chakra basically becomes separate in that the eye aspect goes to Indra, and the heavy chakra aspect goes to the Senjus, Uzumakis. So I quite liked. Sorry about the cats chasing each other. So I quite like that as the kind of explanation here, that like they're not directly telling you the biological lineage of how special abilities transfer between people. In the same way that like in Avatar and Korra, they never directly tell you how bending actually like transfers from one person to another or how that exactly works. But you can figure it out based on the examples we've been given here. And I don't think the way Hagoromo unlocked the Rinnegan in the end was so crazy that it makes no sense. He is the child of Kaguya, so it does make sense somewhat that he could unlock this power, and that as you go on, it requires, piecing back together the lineage of basically the Sage of Six Paths to actually recreate that power once again. So that actually came together quite nicely. Other parts of the episode, again, they didn't really showcase the fight between Kaguya and the brothers all that much. Just, Black Zetsu kind of taking you almost out of the flashback for a second and saying, the battle lasted a month. The world changed. That was how powerful the combatants were in this fight. But eventually, the two brothers seal Kaguya away using the kind of moon and sun seal that we're going to get, that we know Naruto and Sasuke have right now, and that Homura and Hagoromo had in the past. So that's pretty cool for me, just that like they showed us basically this is what Naruto and Sasuke have to do to Kaguya to defeat her in the end. And she right now has been so powerful that no one's really been able to touch her, let alone two people get the attack in on her at the same time to seal her away. So good setup that like, oh, that's the exact thing that needs to happen. I like that setup here. Other than that, I suppose Homura going off to the moon, which is something we know from the Boruto movie. I suppose given that he is said to be the progenitor, where the Hyuga clan comes from, you sort of kind of wonder like, wait, who did he have a kid with for the Hyuga clan to later form from him if he's up on the moon? Like they kind of mention they'd come and visit each other, so he obviously came back at some point, had children, and that's where that came from. But I would have liked to have seen just a little mention of the Hyuga clan in there, and that being the case. But just knowing that, like, I suppose the formation of the moon, that's another thing I completely forgot about until now. Hagoromo using the planet, like the jutsu at the end basically being planetary devastation, creating the moon from the earth on Earth was really cool scene, and like them literally sealing, you know, the Ten Tails Ghetto statue Kaguya within the moon, and Hamura being the one to watch over the Kaguya, the mother. And I did like that they used the fact that he was kind of possessed by her temporarily to kind of explain to us, I suppose, why he would watch over her. That when he was possessed, he could, I suppose, sense her emotions because she was controlling him. And he came to, I suppose, understand more of what she was doing. That as much as what she was doing was bad and did need to be stopped, she was protecting us from something. And so he's kind of just staying around her, I suppose, you know, to, you know, protect her. And just, they're both aware that she was setting up for something coming, and they have to be prepared for that. Again, that's reference to the Boruto movie. But there were three characters there. There was only two Ototsukis in the Boruto movie, and there was a third one there. They do mention, I think, in the Boruto movie, the two of them killing another Otsutsuki, but I'm not really sure if that's potential setup for the Boruto manga, that we are going to get another Otsutsuki character as a villain, and one of these people from the sky, which just creates this even more like interesting stuff of just, can we get a arc where we like focus in depth on the Otsutsuki clan and like where they actually do come from, in that like this was the episode that I think made it most clear that the Otsutsukis are like actually aliens. Like we basically knew that before, but like this just made it like extremely clear, given that, oh wait, the moon was basically formed in this episode, so it's not like they came from the moon, so where did they come from? And like she gave a complete non-answer to Hagoromo when he asks like, what are you? Like, where do you come from? So a lot of questions, I think, still to be answered ultimately, in that as much as this episode was an information dump, like unlike any other I've ever seen in any show almost, and it was good, there's still a lot of other questions about the Otsutsuki clan, the origins, the stuff I suppose before Kaguya, which is like, as far as we're aware, like throughout the entire Naruto story, Kaguya is like the one of the earliest points that we have. They always seem to start acting crazy when I do these videos. But anyway, once he doesn't jump on me, the video should be fine. So yeah, that's basically. So yeah, I think that's basically all I wanted to cover. Like, there's so much information in this episode; it's kind of hard to touch on absolutely everything. But I suppose final thoughts on this arc, this 3 episode arc of the backstory of Kaguya. I think it worked, because the main thing that you come out of this with is an understanding more about the emotions of Kaguya as a character, why she's doing what she's doing, and like just in general for Naruto, it establishing that for the most part there are no characters who are just full on villains with no reasoning behind what they're doing other than to be villainous. That even Kaguya, who is basically said to be, you know, the villain of all villains in this show, she suffered these, you know, key betrayals during her life. The first one was the man she loved, the father of her children, and what she did, the sacrifices she made to, you know, protect her kids, and then she tries to protect the planet from the people coming, protect her children, and then, you know, they ultimately are the ones to stop her. You know, the problem is that she couldn't see that like what she was doing to humanity ultimately was wrong, and she was kind of blaming all of humanity for the actions of just a few people, and the sons were correct in what they did, but she just sees that as her sons, the people she gave birth to, as betraying her, and so her being so angry at effectively, you know, the direct descendants from her sons being in front of her here in Naruto and Sasuke, you understand why she's, you know, crying and is so angry, because in her mind it's just, she gave her chakra to her children, and now the descendants of that, the people who have chakra, are just doing all this stuff to, you know, hurt her and go against her, betray her, and she just wants that back. She wants things back to the way it was before, where she was the only one with power on the planet before, and that's when things were relatively okay. And for her, She doesn't care about humanity. She just wants to protect it from the rest of her own species, and I think that's a really cool setup. And I hope it's something like the Boruto manga. I think chapter 2 should be coming out in the next week or two. It's something that the Boruto manga I think should cover, going a bit more in depth on the Otsutsukis, and it just sets up that even though Naruto were towards the end, obviously had all the mangas out and we've had all this other stuff, but there's still so much more left in this universe to actually address. But next week, I think we are back to full on canon. This next week's episode, given the title of it, I do know, I think, what it's referring to in the next episode, and I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be uh, I think it's going to be one of the most fun moments in a long time in the show, and it's going to be like, okay, this is back to the old school Naruto roots here. So I'm really excited for next week's episode, and I think it's going to be one a lot of people like, and I suppose just in general, back to canon now. I suppose proper battle is going to really start next time, and then we can start to get into the final key character arcs, key battles towards the end of the series. So not long left to go at all now, but obviously I will continue to review these episodes as they come out. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode and the review. Thanks for watching, and bye.